If anybody wants to message me privately, they're more than welcome to message me if you would rather that I ask the question on your behalf. However you want to make that work, that's fine. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes before we get started. But thank you, everybody. Get comfortable. I have my team here. I have Emmy Gavioli from San Francisco. We wave, Emmy. And I've got Rebecca here from New York. And we have Dr. Meredith Browder, who I'm going to Brower. Oh my gosh, I'm tongue-tying my own team. Here from Santa Monica. You can see the beautiful sun behind her in the clinic. And we'll introduce you to both our amazing Eastern practitioners, Carla and Mona, and I can't wait to talk more with everybody. But thank you so much. And if anybody would like to message me and let me know where you are, because we'd love to know, and I'd love to share with everybody how from around the world we're here. And we'll definitely, just so you know, we've already put up on our YouTube channel, so please, I hate to be a social sharer, but we want to connect, join our YouTube channel. It's Kind Body. And if you join that, you can see our sound bath from earlier today. There's our retreat that was on April 4th. That's got a lot of great information on there. So you can always, we'll put up everything that we're doing as we go through the week. We'll have that on our YouTube channel. And for the therapy session that we had yesterday, we're going to do a separate one with just the practitioners so that we can put that up on the channel as well. Because we wanted to make sure that it was private for everyone that was in that conversation. We didn't want anybody's faces to show, and we wanted to make sure that we could honor everyone that was joining, but we still want to offer that information. So wonderfully, we have Atlanta, Georgia, Florida, Santa Monica. So yes, thank you so much, and welcome. I'd like to introduce Dr. Meredith Brower. She is our physician here at Kind Body and is part of our team as we all work together to provide accessible healthcare and fertility for all. So Dr. Meredith Brower, welcome. Talk to us.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you to everyone who's joined us tonight. This is an exciting talk for us because part of what we're trying to do at Kind Body is approach fertility care from sort of a more holistic approach, and that often involves sort of and doesn't have to, but it often does, a combination of both more traditional Western medicine as well as Eastern medicine. And we're lucky enough tonight to have two really special people who are also really experienced acupuncturists here in the city of LA. They both have a specialty in taking care of preconception care as well as fertility care. So we have Mona Dan and Carla Vidor, both who are wonderful, and patients universally love them. So what we'll do tonight, I'm going to let Mona and Carla introduce themselves. Tell them a little bit, tell you about themselves sort of personally, because they both have kind of a real interesting journey as to how they've arrived to the care that they're providing that's relevant to the care that they're providing. And then after that, I'll come back and sort of reintroduce you to a little bit about what we're doing here in the clinic at Kind Body, and then let them really talk some more specifics about Chinese medicine and acupuncture and diet and the approaches that they use to also take care of and support patients. So Mona, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Mona Dan. I'm the founder of eHealing. We are a wellness spa that we focus definitely on women's health, but also a range of other issues dealing with pain, anxiety, stress, and so on. And we also have a product line that really supports the body outside of the treatment room too. The way I found myself here is I was pre-med and was definitely interested in being in medicine. And all I was saying before all of this was I want to do something in medicine, but I just don't want to have anything to do with needles. And it was just so silly, right? Because while I was studying undergrad, I just felt like I wanted some soul, some philosophy. And I stumbled upon a job at a front desk position in an integrated wellness space. And I saw that the people who were leaving the acupuncture room were leaving significantly better than in any other treatment that they had scheduled. And me being like, okay, anything but needles, I was like kind of hesitant. And then I started learning about it by taking an Eastern philosophy course and learning about the whole philosophy of Taoist medicine, and realizing that there's so much to the nature around us and our internal environments, and how there's a synchronicity between us. And beyond that, there's a different perspective of looking at the body, looking at wellness, looking at blood, and just everything that we typically are going through, but with a completely different lens. And that's what really started my journey, diving deeper into Chinese medicine. And honestly, every day that I went to school and learning more and more about it, I felt like there's like the secrets of the world hidden in this like philosophy of medicine. And it's profound, it's incredible, and it works so well with Western medicine. And when doctors want to work with us, honestly, it's like the biggest joy, because we have two different perspectives, and together, simultaneously putting our heads together creates incredible, incredible results. So that's how I'm here today.
Thank you, Mona. Now, Carla, Carla's here with us tonight as well. Can you tell us a little bit? I believe Carla wants to share a little bit about some of her personal journey as well. Would you mind doing that, Carla?
Yes, I'd be happy to. First of all, I just want to say how awesome it is that we've really arrived at this moment where a 3,000-year-old medicine combines so perfectly with a really modern practice of fertility. And it really works. It really works. And I've seen it over and over and over again. And Meredith, thank you for giving me this opportunity, because it's really a pleasure to work with you. And I so appreciate you answering my questions over email in a very detailed way, because that's how I think we can all work best together, is just by learning as much as we can. So in honor of Fertility Awareness Week, I thought I would share my own story, because it's kind of interesting. So basically, starting in my late teens, I had stopped ovulating. I wasn't getting a period. Didn't really fully understand what that meant. I remember telling my gynecologist after a couple years of not having a cycle, I was like, well, I don't get my period. And she's like, oh, just go on birth control. You'll get your period. And at that time, I didn't really know what that meant. I just was like, oh, birth control prevents you from getting pregnant. I had no idea what was going on internally with me. So I went on and off birth control for a little bit. I got a couple periods, I think. And then I realized that I didn't like it. I didn't like how I felt. And a couple years later, still no period, I decided to enroll in Chinese medicine school. And I was just like, holy moly. I mean, kind of like what Mona says, it's just like you become a sponge and you just can't even take in enough, because it all makes sense to you. It's not like I can take my uterus out and be like, okay, uterus, do your job, and not look at the rest of me, because if it's not happening, there's a good reason. And so finished school, still no period, still trying to figure my stuff out. And I realized that at this point, not only was it not normal, but it definitely was not okay to not be bleeding and not be ovulating, because now it's like, the time is getting longer and longer. So I decided to do a deep dive. I went back to school to study reproductive health specifically. And at this time, I was a little older and a little wiser, and I was really ready to let go of the things that were not helping me. This is just what I did, but I drank a ton of herbs, a ton of herbs that taste disgusting, really, really nourishing herbs, because what I had realized was for years I was taking all this precious energy that could have been invested in growing follicles, developing them, I don't know, working on my brain. I mean, I had a lot of other issues at that time. I had eczema, I had some digestive stuff, which is why the theory of this medicine really made sense to me. But anyways, I started eating meat again. That was a big thing for me. I was a vegetarian for 15 years. I gave up on a very intense yoga practice that I was really attached to, and that was super hard to do. But after all of these changes, it took a couple years to really do it, but in a way that was soft, instead of like, okay, yes, I'm going to have this baby. I kind of, I guess, channeled more of the Taoist principles, which would be like, the stillness, the quiet that we all need to cultivate a little more in this society. And I ended up getting a period after 15 years for the first time on my own without birth control or exogenous hormones. And then we got pregnant. We miscarried the first one because, you know, clearly something was still amiss. And then I ended up having 2 children in my late 30s and in my early 40s. So I share that because I want to say that it took a lot of time for me to arrive at a place where my body was really ready to invest that enormous amount of energy that is necessary to carry a child. And rebuilding that reservoir, it took a long time, like it took years. And I know the hard thing with fertility is that it's like, you know, this is ticking all the time. And it's like, it needs to happen now. And we kind of get like this vice grip on us with the timeline, and then everything falls off after 35. And I get it, because biological age is everything. I mean, it really is. So where I'm kind of going with all of this is that, like, now we are forced to stop and we're forced to be on standstill. And yes, we may still be like super anxious and like waiting for our period to come, or hopefully not, or waiting for clinics to open so we can like jump back in our plan and get going with our cycles or our transfers. And what I instead am offering to you guys is that to use this time to invest in a little bit of that preconception care, because fertility, it doesn't happen like this. I mean, yes, for some people it does, I don't know, but there's a lot of us, myself included, which is why this is so close to my heart, where it's not easy and it does take time. So this is a great, like I said, a great opportunity for us to connect to what really nourishes us and what really feeds us, and go there. So one last thing I'll say, just to kind of conclude this, is that is what worked for me. And so to summarize, like, how can we support our fertility collectively? And this is going to vary for everyone, but very generally, and I'd have to say 90% of the practice that I have in Santa Monica is like this. We're all a little bit uptight. We're all a little bit wound up. We're overdoing. We're doing too much. We're rushing around. So number one is to slow down and to be still and really connect to that inner peace, as hard as it is right now. But the slowing down and the pausing is really key. The second thing is, of course, how can you nourish yourself with foods? And Mona will probably talk about this in a little bit. You know, it's kind of obvious, but we need those reminders every now and then. And then the third thing, and this was only for me, but is movement. You know, don't do too much. That will mess you up. That will kill your hormones. But don't do too little either, because it's about finding that balance. So.
That's great, Carla. Thank you so much. And we're going to actually dive a lot deeper into all of the things that Carla just talked about. So that was a great way to start. I think what I'd like to do here, I'm going to share some slides here. But again, all these sort of topically things that Carla just mentioned, food, and the importance of, again, not just acupuncture and needling, which we'll talk about, but all these other things, the diet and the activity and the sort of mental well-being. In my mind, when I refer a patient to a good acupuncturist, I sort of know that all of those things will be taken care of, that they're not just going somewhere to get needled, that all of those different elements will be cared for. And honestly, even a really good acupuncturist will talk to people, like become an essential part of a patient support network. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to share some slides here, both that sort of apply to Kindbody. I'm not going to talk for too long, and then let Mona and Carla tell you in more detail sort of what they do and what they know. So let me see what I can do here. Can you see my slides? Loading. Okay. So let me see. So again, you know, part of why this is so great is it's part of what we do, is kind of trying to approach things in a holistic way, and an inclusive way.
And at Kind Body, we sort of provide the Western side of the care. So Carla was referring to cycles and transfers and hormones. And so, we work together. So at Kind Body, we do preconception counseling, but we do everything. We do fertility treatments, we do fertility preservation, we take care of same-sex couples, we even provide gynecologic care. And again, our mission is try to do that in a holistic way with people like Carla and Mona. I think Carla mentioned a really important part of all of this, right? So we're in this sort of strange moment in time where we have all been forced to pause. And part of what inspired all of this is to try to give people information about how to support themselves in this pause, which it sounds like Carla and Mona are going to talk more about. But just an update of kind of where we're at. Things have been on pause. We have stopped all treatments and are just slowly starting to reopen. So all of the Kind Body clinics and many other clinics across the country are very slowly starting to reopen in a safe way. We talked a lot about this last night. I don't think we need to go into it, but fertility care is absolutely essential, and I don't think there's anyone who would argue otherwise. The pause wasn't to punish people. It was, or even because we don't believe fertility care is not essential. It's just, it wasn't in a moment in the center of a really health crisis. Pretty much anything that wasn't life-saving was paused. And now we're getting to the place where we can restart some of this essential care. So if you are in the middle of treatment, I encourage you to reach out to your provider so you can kind of get a status of where they're at and when you can restart if you're ready. And then I think, again, I don't want to take up too much time. So I'm going to have Mona start, because when we were talking yesterday, she was talking about constitution, and I had to take a step back and say, well, can you even tell me what that is? And so she's going to sort of give us a sense of, why Eastern medicine and Western medicine pair up so well. What is this constitution? How do they evaluate it? As well as kind of talking different ways to support the cycle. So would you mind doing that, Mona?
Sure, absolutely. So just to touch base on the connection between TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, and ART, which would be like the IVF, the IUI, all the fertility aspect, the Western fertility aspect. What we're doing is, one is we're trying to regulate your nervous system. So we want to help shift the body from that fight-flight mode into that processing mode. And the way we do that is definitely through acupuncture. It's definitely through herbs. And then we also dive in a little deeper through diet and Eastern nutrition. So the most special part about that in Chinese medicine is we have 4 different people come to us, all with the diagnosis of, let's say, PCOS, but they'll leave with 4 different diagnoses. And that is really important because, one, we get to see what the root cause is in their body. And 2, we're not just giving you the diagnosis, we're giving you the treatment plan, right? So essentially, regular acupuncture sessions, it says it here, it corrects the neuroendocrine activity, which does regulate and result in nervous system regulation and hormone regulation. Through herbs and the Eastern nutrition, we're able to build your blood and your energy. So in Chinese medicine, we say terms like blood deficiency or excess or stagnation. What that means is, and then a patient will go and get their blood test and say, no, I'm not anemic, right? But what we're looking at is the quality of your blood. Are your blood cells healthy and plump, right? If they're not, then they're deficient. Is your blood flowing well? How can we understand that? So the first organ we look at to identify your constitution is your tongue. So your tongue is the only external organ in the body. And by looking at the tongue, we get to see a few different things. One is we get to see the color of your tongue. Is it dark purple? Is it red? Is it almost pale pink, light pink? All that tells us the state of your blood. And the way your tongue looks, it's telling us again how your organs look internally. On the tongue also, we see the coating. Is it dry? Is it cracked? Is it wet? Is it puffy? All of this tells us the state of the energy in your body. And the reason why energy is so important is you can have all the blood in the world in your body, but if your body doesn't have the right energy, which happens through the pumping of blood flow and circulation in the body, it's not going to get to the right places. And once it doesn't get to the right places, it becomes a domino effect of organs almost failing, right? So it's your nervous system getting switched into that fight flight mode instead of that processing mode. So what happens? Let's say you run dry, right? So when you're dry, it's hard for your body to build blood, right? That's the nourishment, that's the fluid in your body. If you run damp, this is people who have like a mucousy like spectrum. They like, their tongue feels a little damp. They just sweat. You sweat a lot. These people, what happens is the internal aspect of the body is humid. And just like we can't run fast in humidity because of the environment, the same thing happens with your blood and the rest of your hormones. If you run too hot, then that dries up your fluids faster and it exacerbates your energy. Literally the same exposure we have to the world around us is what happens internally in our internal biome. So again, we do look at this for the women, but we also look at this for men because that also affects sperm, which affects the pregnancy, the success of the pregnancy. So getting the proper diagnosis for what are you dealing with? What is the root cause? We go even a level deeper and we say, okay, so you're running dry. Now, what organ is the one that's most affected? Is it primarily your spleen? Is it your stomach? Is it the liver? Is it the kidney? Each organ has a specific function also. There's so much detail I can go into, but my whole point with this is we have to see what the root cause is with the individual in front of us. And with the proper diagnosis, we're able to create a perfect treatment plan for you to help you on your journey with ART.
Great. I know, Carla, we had talked about different foods that support, since we have the different constitutions pulled up here, would you mind telling us a little bit more about the foods and the ways to support these different constitutions?
Sure. Well, I mean, the great thing about Chinese medicine is it's fairly simplistic. You know, if you run cold and you have to wear socks to bed and you're covered up, you know, with 2 blankets and your partner is, you know, sleeping with nothing, then you run cold and you need warm foods. We need to warm you up. So like Mona was saying, everything is trying to go towards harmony. So for dryness, you want to build moisture. Some moistening foods, like kind of intuitively, would be things that have more liquid. So soups, bone broth is awesome. I know everyone is big on bone broth. Bone broth is not for everyone, but again, this is super general, and I encourage everyone watching to find someone that they can really diagnose them. But broths are great, especially animal protein based broths. Those tend to be a little more nourishing. Asparagus are very good as a vegetable to help moisten dryness. Seaweeds are also very good. They're also blood building. In general, though, you know, cherries are good. I'm just kind of listing off the top of my head, but things that have moisture, and that isn't necessarily fruits all the time, because fruit also has a lot of can be a lot of sugar. So broths, bone broth, asparagus, cherries are great. The seaweeds, that's kind of, oh, and also seafood. Seafood can also nourish dryness, for sure. Yep. Okay, so dampness. Dampness constitutions do not do well with a lot of heavy foods that can cause more stagnation and more dampness to accumulate. So like Mona was saying, this is the person that's just kind of like, you know, maybe they're a little fatigued, maybe they're a little like fuzzy headed. So we want to dry the dampness. That is a lot of fresh food, fresh fruits and vegetables, but not to the point in excess. Everything is in moderation again, because if you eat too much fresh fruits and vegetables, you're going to actually create more dampness. So fruits and vegetables in moderation, and again, kind of like those warming foods that help the dampness from accumulating. I'm going to say soups for a lot of things, because you can't go wrong with soups, especially preconception, pregnancy, and postpartum. Those are all really wonderful foods. I will say for dampness, the things that you want to avoid, that's very clear. Sugar, processed foods, and like any, even coconut ice cream, for example, even though it's not dairy, it still can create dampness, even things that are healthy. let's see, heat. So if you are hot, you're going to want to cool down. Those are, again, kind of like the raw vegetables. And I'm hesitating because nothing is so like linear here. There's always like a but heat, you're going to want to like cool things down. Cucumber, watermelon. Again, those seaweeds are cooling, and they also nourish dryness. So it really depends on the nature of the heat, but I can say to avoid things very easily. No fried food, no spicy food, nothing that's going to like make you more inflamed. Cold, we want to warm you up. So soups, warm soups, animal proteins, and things that are, you know, those soups and stews that are a little more heavy and maybe more heavily spiced, because those warming spices like cumin and anise, maybe a little bit of cayenne, but not too much, because that can also throw the body off. Those are all going to warm the body. Cinnamon is really great. I don't know, Mona, you probably have more ideas than me, but that's what I would think.
Yeah, definitely the soups is right. So congis are huge. So stews with rices, with different types of rice. You can have different like rice medleys. Barley is really great for someone who has dampness, to kind of dry up the dampness in the body. Somebody asked about a vegan option. So in Chinese medicine, we do believe that meat, animal products are good for you, but definitely just a certain amount of it, not load up on it. If you want to go vegan, create a hearty soup with dark leafy vegetables, add the seaweeds, add different mushrooms. All of those nutrient dense foods are filled with minerals and vitamins. And those vitamins and minerals really give that energy to your blood. So we just want to really, really nourish your blood. Obviously, as Carla said, a diagnosis that can really tell you, hey, you have dryness here, but your spleen is running a little bit damp. So make sure you add a little bit of this and that. It'll be a more specific diagnosis and Eastern consult of looking at the body. A nice way that I always recommend for patients to start is by identifying their blood type. Knowing the blood type, I know there's a lot of people that try to debunk the whole blood type diet, but in practice, I've seen it for the past 8 years. I've seen it do amazing, amazing things. So start with your blood type diet, and then wake up in the morning, you want to warm your adrenals, right? You don't want to put extra energy that overworks them, like caffeine. So first eat something warm. Make sure you're not having a shake or something raw. Have like an oatmeal. If you're gluten-free, have a gluten-free oatmeal. If you're going to have a smoothie, make it a warm smoothie. Add it to some oatmeal that, you know, or make some sort of muffin with it. Make sure that what you're consuming first thing in the morning is warm. What that does is you're turning your car engine on, right? And as soon as you dump a ton of ice cold shake in the body, it sizzles your whole body out. And what happens to your adrenals? It's like, oh, now I have to get up and moving with all of this heavy liquid in my body that's super cold. Like, what am I going to do? So when you are able to support the body with like warm water, with lemon in the morning, the alkalinity is really supportive too. So you have the warm water, you have your warm meal. Then after you start digesting that food, incorporate your caffeine, because your adrenals are going to be supported at that time. And it's not going to be a battle of draining more of that adrenal energy, which is so important to fertility, right? We want to nourish those kidneys and the adrenals and the essence of the body. So definitely everything Carla said, and eating right temperatures at the right time of the day is important. If you're going to have a salad, add some warm vegetables to it. If you run cold, add a little bit of a ginger dressing onto it. But again, we have to see what we're dealing with specifically with the patient.
So maybe this is a silly question, but is there any way for any of us to know what our constitution is, other than we should all come see you, but is there any way that we could know that, or is that something that really is part of what you guys are assessing when you first are evaluating patients?
Go for it.
Okay, well, I was going to say, if you go back very simply to the like running hot or cold, I mean, that's like the easiest place to start. Do you run cold or do you run hot? Are you like bundled up when everyone else is sweating, or are you the opposite? And then from there, you can kind of break down the foods that would walk you towards health or create more imbalance. So, I mean, you can look at your own symptoms in terms of signs like tongue and pulse. That would be something that a Chinese medicine doctor would have to diagnose.
Yeah, but take a look at your tongue. Does it look like your tongue is dry with cracks, or does it look like water's about to drip off? You know what I mean? You'll be surprised. Does it look puffy, like it has teeth marks because your body is so fatigued that it's taking the shape of your teeth? There's so much information out there right now that you can look at Chinese medicine tongue diagnosis and get some idea. Obviously, if you really care about this and you want to get more details, talk to a practitioner. Somebody's asking if chlorella and spirulina helps with fertility. Absolutely, especially with leveling out mercury in the body. It's amazing. Really great for you. Just make sure you're not having it with ice cold water.
Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide because Mona, you were starting to talk a little bit about foods at different times of the day. And I know one of the things we wanted to talk about is different times of the cycle and how can you support yourself depending, what are the different phases of the cycle from an Eastern medicine standpoint, and how do we support those different parts of the cycle? So would you mind talking a little bit about that?
Sure. And Carla, jump in if you want to add. I'll start with the different phases. So you start first day of your cycle. That is your blood period, your phase 1, your menstruation. During this time in Chinese medicine, what we're looking at is, 1, are you properly shedding? And how does the shedding look? Do you have blood clots? Is it pale? Is it dark? Do you have, are you having like so much pain? Do you not have pain? Do you have pain after your cycle? All this information is telling us, does your body run dry? Does it run cold? Is it deficient? Is it excess? What's going on? These are signs and symptoms. What we recommend for you during this time is definitely keep it easy. Do not do heavy excess workouts during this time. Sorry, I'm going to turn off, I don't know why there's music in my spa. Try not to exercise during this time. Just do super gentle walking, maybe a very, very, very gentle, nourishing yoga. But this is the time to nourish your body and to kind of give yourself a hug. Your blood is shedding at this time.
Can I share one thing really quickly?
Yeah, go for it.
I just have a super interesting case study. So it's really quick. I had a patient, horrible cramping, like dark, heavy periods, purple. Like it looked like she was, large chunks of tissue were coming out of her, and we couldn't really figure it out what was going on. We had tried herbs, we had talked about food, and what I had realized that I had forgotten to ask her was her exercise patterns during her period, and she would like go for it when she was bleeding. And as soon as we took that piece out, it was like everything kind of bounced. I mean, it took a couple cycles, but that was it. That was the missing piece.
Wow.
Yeah, nourishment and rest is a very, very important part of building blood. Obviously, herbs, foods, nutrition, and acupuncture regular sessions too. The next stage you go on to, generally the first stage is day 1 to 5, right? So from day 5 to 10, we start developing the follicular stage. And what we consider yin is beyond blood. So yin is like the nourishment. It's the fluid and of the body. It's kind of mixes with the essence of the body. And it's the cooler aspect of the body. So during this time, what is happening obviously on the Western front is increased estrogen and FSH, because we're building the follicles, right? And then we had just bled, so we need to rebuild again. And what we need to rebuild is super healthy, dense lining, right? And with this, we add in a little bit of heat during this warming time, and we support the body with primarily acupuncture, but herbs. Herbs is really key here. And if you see here, I wrote eat protein and mineral-rich foods with meat, eggs, cooked leafy greens. Definitely, this is a time to eat warming foods to nourish that yin. Do you have anything to add, Carla, to this?
If you're trying to get pregnant, this is the time that you can kind of go for it with exercise. That's all I want to say. Yeah, if you're trying. If you're not trying to get pregnant, then you can kind of go for it at any time of the cycle. But if you're really trying to focus on your fertility and you have a very, you know, a physical activity practice that you love, like a Barry's boot camp or something, I would do it here as opposed to after ovulation. That's all.
Yeah. And then we go in, so we were in the yin stage, right? Blood. So yin is the fluids of the body. It's the nourishment of the body. Now we're going to go to the energy of the body. So we go to the heat and the energy of the body. This is when we start really ovulating and we start releasing that ovulation is the next stage, phase 3. And it's our heat aspect. This is before, so we're trying to build heat. So if we're trying to get pregnant in stage 4, we increase that basal body temperature, right? So here we add all the warming herbs. In our practice, we have 4 different types of phases that we have different herbs for. Primarily, we just kind of tweak them with what we see with the patients. So here we're talking about warming the body up with herbs. Moxibustion is big during this time. And I'm going to talk about moxibustion, which is mugwort that is, it's lit like a cigar and it's put on different parts of the body, or it's just an herb that's lit and put on different parts of the body. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to help with the ovulation to really create that super healthy egg and follicle for the proper release. And then, do you have anything to add here, Carla?
No.
No? Okay. And then somebody just asked, is moxibustion safe during early pregnancy? So the thing with moxibustion is, yes, 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 but you have the release of, my gosh, what is it? Like oh my gosh. You have the release of heat, right? Kind of like a cigarette. So you just want to make sure you're outside if you're doing it, so you're not consuming that smoke. Smoke, that's the word I was looking for, smoke.
May I say something about that question?
Go for it.
May I say something?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So actually, I love moxa in early pregnancy if it's appropriate. Mona's right. Like I would do smokeless, but it's actually great if there's any kind of threat to the pregnancy because, you know, the first trimester is very, very delicate and we don't use a lot of needles when we're treating early pregnancy, but moxa is a very gentle and effective way to kind of support that that yin reservoir that we've talked about earlier. It's actually very simple. You just do a little bit on the top of the head. And there's other points. I mean, moxa is phenomenal and I'm excited, Mona, that you're going to show us later. So definitely yes, but I wouldn't do it on your own. I would go see someone.
Yeah.
And it may not even be necessary. Like you have to need it. You may not need it either.
Yeah. If you run too hot, then we'd say kind of like avoid it. But usually with infertility, usually we have a nature that tends towards coldness in the uterus. So what moxa does is it helps bring heat into the blood vessels of the body to encourage that blood flow and to really support the body. So it's a fast way to bring heat in, which is great for pain relief also, if anybody is dealing with pain relief. Pain. So then the next stage is the luteal stage, which is the final stage. At this point, you're going to find out if you're pregnant or if you're going to start bleeding again. So we want to make sure we're supporting that energy of the body. We want energy to either support the pregnancy and to secure the pregnancy, or to have the proper energy to shed properly. So depending on where you're at, what you need, we work with herbs to warm the body, or more herbs to move the blood out of the body. Yeah, these are the different phases.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. That was really wonderful. We have a few more minutes, I think. Tracy, should we do questions or do we have a few more minutes?
We do have a few more minutes because I think what we kind of discussed before is how you've seen in clinic how your medicine has helped, like with building linings and doing so. I would love for you to share your experience and then ask both Carla and Mona kind of what those processes are on their side.
Yeah, I mean, I find my patients have things that are just universally, every time you send a patient, they come back better, would be painful periods, acupuncture, and maybe actually in a second, for someone the difference between acupuncture, acupressure, and then moxibustion. I know, Mona, you were going to show us the moxibustion, just, you know, do a combination. Are you always using all of them? But the things that I always see that it helps a lot for painful periods. It's significant. Irregular periods, I find that it really helps a lot with irregular periods. Thin endometrial linings. I don't know what you guys do over there, but it seems to be quite magical for thin linings. I mean, I've had some patients who have seen every fertility doctor in Los Angeles, and then after not just acupuncture, but changing the diet and really sort of throwing themselves into everything that their acupuncturist is advising them to do, really can make significant improvements. But maybe you guys could comment both on some of the areas that you feel like are best served, if not everything, and then maybe the difference between the different modalities. Carla, do you want to start on that?
Sure. Well, I'd have to say dysmenorrhea is fairly easy. I mean, it's fairly easy to treat, honestly. I'm sure Mona can agree with me, because a lot of time it's just about movement. And it's just that stuck energy that's not going anywhere, so you're getting the cramping. And it's fairly easily treated with acupuncture. Yes, herbs and diet can be very helpful with that, but a lot of times if you just move the energy and you open up the congestion, the cramping, the pain, the discomfort, it's gonna reduce a lot.
Awesome. Yeah, and to movement, yesterday we were talking about it with Dr. Brower, is amazing just shaking your hips, what that does. Like a little bit of dancing, moving that energy in the lower aspect of the body. It does so much exercise that we do makes that area so much more rigid, right? Like Pilates, everything, we're like stiffening our core and it's tightening that whole area. But what you want is flow. You want to move. Our female energy is about fluidity. So we want to incorporate that fluid flow, and it does so much, not only for amenorrhea, dysmenorrhea, pregnancy, infertility, but also for constipation, diarrhea, low back pain. Women hold so much emotional energy also in that area. Just moving it physically is incredible. And yeah, again, what Carla said with just acupuncture is amazing, especially if people have a more excessive type of dysmenorrhea because of the pain. Some people have pain because they're deficient and they need to build up some more in their body. But the people who have excess and just need help with movement, the acupuncture does wonders, and the moxa does great for both also.
Same thing. A lot of times dysmenorrhea is also from cold, like Mona mentioned earlier. So just moxa on the lower abdomen can be like magic. I mean, it's, yeah, I think we have a lot of success treating that.
Yeah.
Can you talk about thin linings? What is the magic that you're doing over there with thin linings?
Do you want me?
Go ahead, Mona. You can start. Yeah.
So with thin lining, again, I'm looking, what I primarily found in practice is with thin lining, the patient is running cold in their lower aspect of their body. So shifting their breakfast is a huge aspect to it. Making sure the patient is coming at least twice a week before that phase to really get the blood flow coming. And then if they're able to incorporate herbs, all the better.
When I think of thin lining, I usually think of where are they overdoing it. Acupuncture is great. Also, you add e-stim a little bit to just sort of stimulate the needles around the uterus. Food is key here. Food is key because the uterus is a muscle, and it's a muscle that's full of blood. So we want to support the digestion so that the digestive fire can take the food and the energy from the food and turn it into blood, healthy blood. So yeah, supplements can also help. I mean, you can Google everything. L-arginine is one of them. I mean, there's a lot of supplements that can also support that. But
yeah, and somebody
it's a trifecta, or it's there's a lot of variables.
Yeah. So somebody's asking what foods thicken. So think dark leafy greens. Think a little bit of protein. If you run hot, chicken is not good for you. Chicken is actually something that produces too much heat in the body. So go towards meat and turkey as a substitute. You can make broths with it. You can eat it. Just have a little bit at a time. If you're a vegetarian and you're interested in trying it, definitely try very little bit at a time. You don't want to shock the body. Again, introducing to meat and being introduced again to meat. But it's really interesting how much it helps.
Yeah, and like sort of in general, and I think this is where we're going, because the uterus is a muscle and it's full of blood, animal protein might be the best for that. I'm not saying that you can't, be a vegetarian or a vegan and have a healthy uterus, because you absolutely can. It may be a little harder if your constitution is not wired in that way.
Yeah, again, the blood type diet is a big part of that. Like blood type A, you don't really need meat in your body. It kind of gets stuck in there. You don't have the proper enzymes to digest it, and it just puts the body on overdrive. You might crave it, you might want it, but is it benefiting you the way you want, or is it putting your body into that fight flight mode? Yeah.
Carla, sorry.
Go for it.
Carla, one of the questions, speaking on how did you slowly add animal protein back into your diet?
That's such a good question. Okay, I have to think back because it was a long, long time ago. Now I eat red meat, fairly often. What did I do? So I started with fish, and I started with I had to know where it was sourced. I was a little bit anal about it. It depends your reasons, first of all. But yes, a little bit at a time. And I would definitely start with the fish. Like wild salmon is good if you are opposed to the super fishy taste. You could do a white cod, because cod is really good in fats. It's not overfished. There's a lot of nutrients in that. And then when I started actually eating meat, I would do little meatballs, a couple a week, and my body loved it. I mean, it was the best thing for me. It was pure medicine. And then after I knew that it wasn't scary and that nothing was going to happen, it was okay. But yeah, little bit at a time. If you are not used to it and you do have some digestive stuff, you could take a digestive enzyme with your meat, but just, I think little bites to start are plenty.
Thank you. Mona, I wanted to ask you, so someone is asking, how do you find a trusted acupuncturist? In this case, they're in Kansas City, but I mean, in general, what would you say are the best tips for vetting someone in TCM and finding a good acupuncturist?
I mean, right now it's fairly easy, especially with Instagram. And, is the acupuncturist talking in a way that you're able to hear? Are they using the type of language that settles in with you, that you understand, that you can kind of relate to and you can work with? It's, some people will come to me and they're like, oh my God, you're the best, you're the best, you're the best. And then you'll have a patient that'll be like, I don't really connect with Mona. Can I see another doctor here? It's really personal. And you just talk, if you want, you can do consultations with different doctors and practitioners and talk to them. I wish I had a directory to refer you to, but you can always ask us and call us and ask us. And if there's anyone we know in your city, I don't know anyone specifically in Kansas City, but the good news is we're working with a company that's going to be hopefully launching a lot of locations around the country for V-Healing soon. So you would have a trusted practitioner within us. Everyone is highly vetted. All my practitioners here, I make sure they're the right fit for our practice. And we have ones that are more esoteric, ones that are more scientific, we have a range of practitioners to really support the different people who walk in through our doors.
I have a question in that regard. So all the acupuncturists that I have used also help with all the things we've been talking about tonight. They diet and all these and lifestyle and exercise. So is that just because I'm working with good acupuncturists, or is that a universal phenomenon? Should that be the expectation? Is that universally done? Or is that just because those are good people?
Generally, a good acupuncturist will incorporate your whole life, your holistic life, and kind of target each aspect of it to see how they can support you. But you do have some acupuncturists that just do pure acupuncture, and you have some that purely do herbs. You just have to, generally we touch on everything, especially food and diet. But as far as the specifics of, are we all herbalists? No, but we definitely know our herbs. But can we customize a formulation for you? Not everybody. So if that's important for you, make sure your acupuncturist is also an herbalist. We have to get trained in it, and we have to pass our board exams knowing all of our herbs. But after we leave, are we looking into that? Is that something we're cultivating? Because it's a practice. You know, it's true pharmacy, and it's deep, and it's like herbs have synergistic effects. You can't just take ashwagandha and think you're good. You need to kind of take a formulation that takes your body into consideration. Generally, a formulation has anywhere between 4 to 12 herbs in it that really, really is customized to your body and what your body needs.
Awesome. I was going to ask Carla, and we lost her for a second. So let's get
Back. Someone was being noisy in her house.
I know. Carla, do you have, tell us what your kind of perspective of vetting someone?
Well, I actually see a question from someone on there. There's a governing board, American Board of Oriental and Reproductive Medicine. If you go to that website, you look up Kansas City, you will find someone, ABORM, ABORM. They are wonderful. They're wonderful. And that way you'll know that they are truly vetted for your needs, which I'm assuming are fertility.
Right.
Perfect. And then I'm just going to go, I had some private questions before we were able to turn the chat on. I'm going to scroll back really quick. I'm so sorry, because someone asked, there was a herb. Go ahead, Meredith, and I'm so sorry. I'll find the question. Did you?
That's okay. One of the questions that was here was about clothing. Actually, is there things, and this is about clothing, but I have questions about other acupressure type things. This question was about, does applied pressure such as tight clothing affect the uterus? And so could you comment both about clothing, but also, you know, I know for early pregnancy, I'll have patients wearing acupressure bands. So are there other pressure type things that can affect or that you recommend for your patients?
Go ahead, Carla, and then I'll answer after you.
Well, okay, the C-bands and the tight clothing are two separate things, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I wouldn't advise if in the preconception time we are trying to improve blood flow to the uterus, that you wear super tight stuff, because that is only going to cause more constriction. Like what Mona said, the movement in the hips, the fluidity, that is super crucial. After you get pregnant, you know, that all changes. But beforehand, you definitely need the free flow. In terms of the C-bands, I've seen success and I haven't. I don't know exactly what the question was. Like, do they work? They do work.
But for nausea, or do you use, I mean, sometimes people come in with seeds. Like, are there things that people are doing outside the clinic with either pressure or other modalities that, like, other than when they're in your clinic?
Definitely. And I know Mona is the ear seeds, so I'm going to let you speak about that. But in terms of magnets, I like to use magnets because they're not, they're safe and there's no like liability or anything. You can help with morning sickness a lot. You can help with anxiety. This is a really good point for anxiety. Magnet right there, a magnet right here is very good for morning sickness. Even the nausea point where people typically put their wristband can be helpful, but you have to stimulate it.
So for me, so the tight clothing, it's actually really interesting that you're saying this, and I wanted to talk about it. I just didn't know how to fit it in. I've had 2 pregnancies, and I was so sick throughout both of them, like ridiculously sick for the whole time. But one pregnancy, I needed tight clothes, and the second pregnancy, I couldn't have anything even touch my body or my abdomen. And that also showed a sign of my excess and my deficiency. So when we're deficient, pressure feels good. And when we're excess, pressure feels horrible, right? Like just imagine like a bruise that's like killing you and you put pressure on it and it's like, I can't, right? There's just too much stagnation under there. But then if you touch different points of the body and it's like a good hurt, that means that area is a little deficient. So that's what I would recommend for that. And it was so interesting because during my pregnancies, how one was so different than the other. We were trying to figure out, is it because this one's a boy and that one was a girl? But I really think that internally I had an excess and a deficiency, and I just, yeah. As far as the pressure points, yes. So we have our 24 karat gold ear seeds. They can be applied to the different parts of the body. They are magnets that are coated in 24 karat gold. We place them specifically on pressure points of the ears. So the ear is innervated by 3 main nerves, and it directly communicates with the reflex centers of the brain that send signals to the nervous system to regulate. And the proper hormones and chemicals are then sent to kind of regulate the body. They even use these in battlefields for soldiers for like a quick relief for stress, anxiety, pain, nausea, digestive issues, sleep issues. So what you do is you apply them on the certain pressure points, and there's a microsystem, which is like a reflexology map that you've seen of the hands and the feet, that each organ kind of has a place in on your hands and your feet. You also have that on your ear, and stimulating them with each of these ear seeds synergistically creates an incredible relief in the body, and it relaxes you. So you get better sleep, you have better digestion, overall stress and anxiety is reduced. So definitely those work. PC6 is the point here that you put the C-band, is effective, not for everybody. What really is effective, which is so interesting, having personally felt it too, is with morning sickness, I would feel it in certain areas of my body more. Sometimes it would be like the center of my chest. Sometimes I would feel it in my arms, and stimulating those points with pressure is incredible. Again, see where you're feeling your issue, and encourage blood flow in that area. And yeah, I could show you them, but I think I'll show you the moxa. I think it's more, I mean, the ear seeds are good for everyone always. The moxa specifically, there's certain ones you can purchase and do at home. Do you want me to show you that now or wait until after?
No, why don't we do that now? Because we're going to wrap up in just a couple minutes. I'd love for you to show us. Okay.
So this is a certain moxa. If you look at it, they're small little cigars type, you see, mugwort. And this one has an adhesive on the bottom. This is great for in-home use. And what you do is you light it just like this. And you see it has a little heat. And like this point right here is large intestine 10. And you put it on this point, just like that. And you allow the heat to penetrate. And this point is great for immunity. So it encourages that blood flow. You wait until the mugwort kind of burns all the way to the end, and then you put it out. And you could put this on a few points in the body. It's really interesting. It's so cool, and it feels so good. You just feel energized after it.
Thank you.
Of course. I'm just going to watch it burn.
Yeah. I'm going to come. I want to dance. I've already decided our next virtual event is definitely doing some sort of shaking, some hip movement shaking for sure. Yeah. For sure. One question someone had asked about an herb formulation, Wen Jing Tang. Is it something that is effective and is it something that needs to be paired with acupuncture, or is it something that you could take on your own?
No, don't take it on your own. It is a great formula for building blood and supporting the uterus, but don't take it on your own. Get the proper diagnosis first.
And then, so anybody else, I know, Carla, because we're going to wrap up right now. Carla, do we have any parting comments? And then I'll go to you, Mona. But again, thank you both. I'm so excited that we've been able to have this conversation.
Thank you.
The only thing I want to say is if this information connects with you, which I hope it does, because it changed my life. I mean, it changed my life in so many ways, is to either study it or to find someone that you can work with in your area, because it really works. It really works for fertility. I mean, it does. And I think married with reproductive technologies, it's even cooler. And the emotional support that you can give someone is priceless. Like it's my favorite thing, actually. But yeah, that's kind of it. If you're inspired, then I would suggest you study this or find your own practitioner.
Yeah, definitely look into it, read about it, get familiar with it. It can be done at home. You don't necessarily have to go see your doctor. You can do it through telehealth if it's something that's more difficult with you, for you to get to a certain place. There are ways around it to support yourself with the Eastern and the Western at the same time. And definitely what Dr. Bauer was saying is clinics are opening, like we're open, we're seeing patients, we are essential, and what you're working on is essential. And yeah, ask if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us and we'd love to take care of you.
There's someone just saying here, can we have their Mona and Carla's contact info? So I imagine, Tracy, that's something that we'll send out to everybody.
We'll send a recording of this conversation. And then just so everyone knows, this was just the kind of our first step into really exposing Eastern and letting, kind of having the conversation. And we are so blessed that Carla and Mona took time, but we would absolutely love to do future sessions where we focus on egg freezing. We can focus on IVF. There's a lot of different, again, our goal at Kindbody through our hearts truly is to provide accessible healthcare for everyone and fertility healthcare for all. And so we really are going to do deeper dives and have longer conversations and talk about different aspects. But we really wanted to be able to provide during Fertility Awareness Week an opportunity to just have our conversation and start kind of opening our minds and getting us connected. So truly, thank you so much to everyone. We appreciate everyone. The chat was amazing, and we'll provide more information. Again, I will connect you to both Mona and Carla, and of course to Meredith, where we're seeing patients in our clinic, and we're so happy to be able to have this opportunity to have this conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Carla. Thank you, Mona. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, this was nice. This was fun.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye. Stay safe.
Take care, everyone.